You know, this movie was released at the right time because the title basically sums up all of 2020. Bad event, bad event, bad event, bad event, with no joy in between. Amen. Oh, hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. I was just in the middle of praying because today's movie really had me disturbed throughout, and I felt like I really needed to pray just to cleanse it all out. But it was still good. Today we're going to be talking about the devil all the time. Based on the book of the same name by Donald Ray Pollock, The Devil All the Time is directed by Antonio Campos. Sinister characters converge around a young man devoted to protecting those he loves in a post-war backwoods town teeming with corruption and brutality. I've recently got around to watching some similar films for this channel, such as You Were Never Really Here and We Need to Talk About Kevin, and I know that this film has gotten so much attention since it was released on Netflix, and I finally got the chance to watch it, and well, whew, I need some Jesus after this movie. The Devil All the Time is such an insane film that only gets crazier as the runtime moves forward. Along with such a great cast that delivers on the performances, the story definitely gets a lot stronger because of it. And after watching this film, I never thought that I would say that I would actually fear Tom Holland in a movie. And don't get me wrong, there are also some really great names that stood out, such as Robert Pattinson, Sebastian Stan, Jason Clarke, and so much more. But in the end, Tom Holland definitely stole the cake with this one. He's the main character of the story, Arvin, and his performance and character is something that I never thought I would see from Tom Holland. When Tom Holland first showed up in this movie, all I could think about was him being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in the MCU. And hell, near the end of this movie, we even get to see this encounter between Holland and Stan.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude.
But this is a whole new level for Tom Holland, and this movie really proves how talented he is. The story is set in a town that's full of corruption and people that are pure evil, ranging from corrupt pastors, serial murderers, and rapists. And all these characters do some really crazy things in this movie, and all of those actions even force Holland to do some crazy things. It's one big emotional roller coaster from start to finish, with no breathing room in between, which can get very exhausting. Tom Holland and his performance really make this story better, and I know that there's some people out there that may have thought that he wouldn't be suited for a movie like this, but seeing it in the movie, he made it seamless. But probably the biggest thing to talk about apart from Tom Holland and his performance is how the film deals with themes such as evil, corruption, and hypocrisy on religions. I'd like to start off with one of the best quotes in this movie, basically summing up everything that happens. Some people were born just to be buried, basically saying that all the people in this story are either around to be harmed or to cause harm. The title itself is pretty clever too, considering that every bad thing that happens in this movie only leads to another bad thing, and there's rarely a moment that could give you a sense of joy. Many of the events that take place, as well as some of the imagery, can get very disturbing to look at, especially for those that may be strong believers in faith, like myself. And there's some really disturbing scenes in this movie. Scenes such as a guy pouring spiders all over himself, crying in the name of God. Beware arachnophobia, people. There's a scene where a person, and believe it or not, a dog, are set on a crucifix. It's honestly insane, and it had me disturbed every second. It really is terrifying to know how many bad apples there are in the world, and it's even more terrifying to know that the actions of characters here are being done in the name of God. Every character in this movie is so out of touch with reality that you really won't be able to predict which path they will be taking next. Bill Skarsgård's character basically lays out the foundation for how the events are going to play out in this movie, and to be honest, knowing that he played Pennywise in It, this made it a lot more disturbing to look at. And like I said, in this movie, one bad event always leads to another bad event, to another bad event, with little breathing room in between, and it always just leaves you feeling miserable and boiling inside. Kinda sounds like a certain year to me, if you catch my drift. But of course, none of this would have worked without the performances of the actors. Arvin is the only one that's able to see past all the evil and corruption. While still being a believer in faith, he still feels the need to do what's right in order to bring justice to those around him. And you can see through his face that he knows what he's doing is wrong, but he feels it's the only way out. It gave me a perspective on Holland's side throughout this movie, and I was able to understand why he does what he does. The lesson comes from his father when he tells Arvin that there's so many bad people out there, and there's only one way to handle them. And while I don't agree with the methods that Arvin takes in this movie and would never consider them myself, it's all for the sake of justice, and there are a lot of evil people in this movie that have what's coming to them. And it's one thing for people to do evil things such as murder or rape, but seeing how a lot of these people do it in the name of God, that's just one level that you can't cross. The ending for this film can also leave a very bittersweet feeling in your mouth, and after seeing some interpretations online, it's very moving. And I'd love to talk about those interpretations here, but I know there's some people that haven't read the book or haven't even watched the movie. But for those that have done either of those things, I'd really love to know what you think and how the ending made you feel. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think. But despite all of that, there are some things about the movie that could have been better. After reading some of the reviews online for the book, it seems like it took a much more graphic approach than the film, and not to say that there aren't any violent or graphic scenes in this movie, I've already mentioned a few of them, but there were some moments where it felt a little too safe. I guess more of the graphic scenes are dedicated to how disturbing the imagery can get, but most of the violence plays out in a very standard way. Some of the most graphic scenes are only during the first 45 minutes or so, but the rest is nothing you haven't seen before. I'd expect a lot more from a Netflix film that deals with things such as corruption and religion. You could get some very graphic images with all that. Hell, even Tarantino can make more disturbing images than some of the ones seen in this movie. Maybe give him the camera, see what he comes up with. But the biggest thing that I'm not too fond on is the narration, which is scattered throughout this movie. I'll admit that it does provide a lot of insight on the characters and what they're going through, and the narration overall is pretty well written. But sometimes it feels very unnecessary. It often sounds like the narrator is reading sentences straight out of the book, and I wish that the film would rely a little bit more on the character's emotions rather than telling. What's even funnier about the narration is that the author of the novel, Donald Ray Pollock, is the narrator. I guess he was just so enthusiastic about his book getting a film adaptation that he wanted his presence to be known, maybe? I mean, who knows? But overall, the narration could have been taken out entirely or reduced down a bit. I wouldn't have been surprised if I just heard some page turning in the background when Pollock was narrating.
Like her mother years ago, Lenora felt the same force that drew Helen to Roy Lafferty. The girl imagined that she could touch the love.
But overall, The Devil All the Time is a very creative story with some compelling themes. I'm always a big fan of psychological films like this, and basing it all around corruption and religion was very intriguing to me. There are some moments in the story where it can run a little slow at times, and the overall structure can be a little messy, but it's all in part saved to the cast and their amazing performances. Each of them practically disappears into the character they're playing and can bring out the right emotions from the audience. They'll mostly leave you feeling depressed throughout, but that's what makes the story work so much. I know that there were some aspects of the story that were changed for the sake of the adaptation. Maybe some work, maybe some don't. And while I don't have full knowledge on the book itself, I'm definitely more inclined to read it after this, just to see how much darker it is compared to the film. But as far as the adaptation goes, I'm gonna go ahead and give it 8 out of 10 crucifixes.
Just gotta pick the right time. There's a lot of no good sons of bitches out there.
So I'd like to know, what do you guys think of The Devil All the Time? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or not care to watch it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you made it this far in the video, I'd appreciate it if you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this review. Look forward to more very soon. And until the next one, you guys, I'll see you later. Praise Jesus!